Welcome to Turf Talk, Breeders' Cup at Del Mar edition. Gary, it's been a pleasure having you at Churchill the last two derbies, and now I'm at your house.
Right, instead of myself traveling to see you, it's like trading places in the movie.
Parenthood Breeders' Cup Works edition, and I know we've had our share of workouts up at Santa Anita, obviously other places across the country as horses ship in, more traffic starting to happen here at Del Mar. As a clocker, I know you see a lot of Southern California works. How do you calibrate yourself to prepare for this just barrage of horses from Europe, from New York, Kentucky? What's your approach to assessing the week?
You know, I try to accumulate as much knowledge on the horses coming here that are shipping in for the Breeders' Cup as I can. I'm naturally going to have a better feel for the horses I see train every day in front of me as the California horses, who obviously have a somewhat of a home field advantage this year. You know, some races California looks really strong, and in other races, you know, we might be a bit of a long shots in. You know, the turf races, it appears that the Easterns and the Euros would definitely be hold a stronger hand there. But the dirt races between Dre Fong, Unique Bella, and you know, the Baffert Barrage in the Breeders' Cup Classic, I think that California is very well represented in those races.
Well, in California with 5 Breeders' Cups in the past decade, so you're certainly used to seeing Euros come over here, plenty of other Breeders' Cups before that as well. And we'll see more of them throughout the week as they clear quarantine and come out to the track. But what's for you the biggest difference in their preparation the week of versus how American horses train?
You know, there was a horse that actually worked 3/4 of a mile this morning on the turf and to run this weekend, and most American horses get their last work for the race over with, you know, 6, 7, sometimes 8 or 9 days in advance of the race. And
keeps moving back.
Yeah, it does. It does, and you know, the Europeans, occasionally, as we saw this morning, they will occasionally do something close to the race, like. I mean, it wasn't that long ago when Americans would, you know, blow out 3/8 a day before the race or a half 2 days before the race, but that's pretty much a thing of the past now. But, you know, you want to see when the Euros come over here, you want to see a horse that isn't getting washed out, that looks like he's settled into his new surroundings very well, and that is galloping freely. Most of them aren't going to work, but you just want to see them that they're moving freely and that they're not fretting and sweating.
All right, well, more on them as we actually do get to see them throughout the week, and we're going to touch on Baffert's Barrage in a separate video, but couldn't kick off Breeders' Cup week without touching at least a little bit on the Breeders' Cup Classic. And Steve Asmussen shipped a lot of his horses out early, so I know you've had a chance to see Gun Runner. Arrogate, of course, going to be right there with him, if not co-favored, clear second choice. What have you made of those two coming into this week?
You know, Gun Runner came here, and his first 2 works, not surprisingly, knowing how Steve trains his horses, his first 2 works were just like get used to the track works. Since he stepped up put the pedal down on the gas a little bit, Gun Runner is trained fantastic. You know, when he worked the other day, Bob Baffert was standing next to me, and you know, he jokingly yelled down to Steve about, you know, that horse would have a pretty good shot in the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile, and Asmussen snapped back at him. He said, "We're going to cross-enter and see which race we like better." But you know, Gun Runner's trained. He's trained very well, and Arrogate has his last couple of works. He's rebounded. I wouldn't say he necessarily rebounded, but he really started to work, you know, like a horse that he was when he was winning the Pegasus, and pretty close to what he was doing last year when he took down California Chrome. That being said, if those 2 horses bring their B game instead of their A game, it's not a 2-horse race like last year's Classic was pretty much perceived. Agree. You know, I mean, you know, the horse that won the race at Parks is just, you know, he's West Coast is just, he's a 3-year-old that's coming into his own. Maybe not quite as flashy as Arrogate was last year as a 3-year-old coming up to step against older horses, but they better They better not. They better not trip up because West Coast is definitely marching forward.
All right, yeah, and we'll, like I said, we'll definitely touch on Baffert separately. Last question on the Breeders' Cup front. Del Mar, of course, reputation, maybe too strong a word, but certainly some quirks with the surface over the years, people, biases, et cetera, et cetera. What should we look for with live racing starting Wednesday in terms of Breeders' Cup implications for how the track's going to play, who that might benefit, et cetera?
The last couple of years early in the meet, the track might not be as fast as it normally was. Pretty much for the whole summer meet that we concluded here on Labor Day this year, it was the times weren't quite as fast. So don't be alarmed if you're not seeing the 6 furlongs in 109 and change by $12,500 claimers.
Right.
Inside, outside, it kind of varies a little bit. The one thing that you'll definitely notice when you watch races here is it's one of the shorter stretches you'll see.
I
mean, it's they're
I don't know where
pretty
that
much
camera is, but
3/16 of a mile is
that quarter pole's on the turn.
Yeah, it's and on the turf also. I mean, you better get position, come into the quarter pole, or have a real good kick, turn a foot in underneath you if you're needing to make up 5 lengths or so.
All right, well, good advice, and like I said, we'll have plenty of good content throughout the week. Going to talk Baffert, going to make some picks, look at the Euros, etc. But great to be out here, Gary.
Good to have you here.
All right, thanks.